Terry Silver didn't lose in Cobra Kai. He just proved that there's something worse than defeat. Obsession without an exit plan. This was the moment Terry Silver crossed the point of no return. Let's recap what we know about Terry Silver so far. This is a continuation of my previous video, Why Terry Silver is Still Terrifying, and is also the final video on Silver's character, focusing on his arc in Season 6 Parts 2 and 3. Feel free to skip ahead to avoid the recap, but be warned, you may miss some important details later on in the video. After the events of Season 5, Terry manages to beat his case with nearly all of his resources, but his reputation is destroyed in the process. He makes his way to Bangkok, Thailand to scout out Feng Xiao, also known as Sensei Wolf, and in a plot similar to Karate Kid Part 3, pays off Wolf's debts with his remaining offshore accounts in exchange for revenge against Miyagi-Do and now Kreese. After making it to Barcelona, Silver has Daniel kidnapped and later reveals himself to LaRusso, Chozen, Kreese, and Kim Da-eun. However, Miyagi-Do also takes a page out of Terry's book and manipulates Kreese into attacking Silver. Terry fails to recruit his old student Kenny Payne and gives Daniel a shocking piece of Sekai Taikai history. Mr. Miyagi ended his opponent back when he competed. Focused on the finals match and delighted to find out Robbie's up against Axel, confusion and shock cross the face of Terry when the brawl breaks out. Cornered by his former friend Kreese, Silver gains the upper hand until Johnny Lawrence intervenes. The brawl comes to a screeching halt due to the freak accident of Kwon Jae-sung. Determined to get one last win, Terry convinces Gunther to reach out to the other senseis to agree to continue the tournament. Miyagi-Do is not on board due to Daniel being traumatized by the events of the brawl in Miyagi's past, so Silver persuades Johnny to call a meeting. Terry makes it known that he's sick and wants to go out fighting, agreeing to even have the tournament venue and referees at Daniel's choosing. The Sekai Taikai officially resumes, but Silver still has his cheating playbook, where Wolf coaches Axel on behalf of Terry to break Robbie's leg. Believing to have won, another twist comes into play. Kreese signs over Cobra Kai to Johnny, allowing Miguel to fill in as captain to fight Axel in the finals. With the disease worsening and Silver's fury continuing to grow, he reiterates to the Iron Dragons that they must not lose, even if it changes the opinion of Sam LaRusso, Axel's crush. After Zara is defeated, Terry and Wolf coach Axel to attack Miguel's weak point, but the captain insists on fighting with honor, resulting in Miguel's victory. Both dojos are tied, and it's up to the senseis to determine which dojo will come out on top. Resorting to his old tactics, Silver instructs Dennis to kidnap Johnny's family, but this is stopped by Kreese, who has since reformed and is ready to take out Silver. Silver gains the upper hand once again, but Kreese gets the last laugh by throwing the remains of a cigar into spilled gasoline, igniting an explosion that takes out both Cobras. Let's first talk about the point of no return for Scary Terry. Previously, we've talked about his descent into madness thanks to Kreese in Season 4, his obsession with power and his ego being his weakness in Season 5, and now we talk about what culminates because of that, an absolutely unhinged individual. As I predicted at the end of my previous analysis on Terry, I knew we wouldn't see the last of him, and the way he was used in the final season went beyond my expectations. Just when you think we've seen it all with his previous mind games, Silver orchestrates a trap for Daniel to fall into because of his curiosity with his teacher's past. Had it not been for Kreese, he was planning to do it again, only this time with Johnny's wife and child. And just as he did in 1985, he hires a champion to compete in a tournament to embarrass and seek revenge on Miyagi-Do. Terry's still using dirty mat tactics as Axel is instructed to break the leg of Robbie Keane. Because John Kreese reawakened the old Terry back in Season 4, he was going to stop at nothing to make sure he left a legacy behind. When we flash back to Thailand 3 months before the Sekai Taikai, Silver has turned to substance once again, looking disheveled as he did after finding out that Kreese had a weakness. Though the case has exhausted nearly all of his financial resources aside from his offshore accounts, because of the rage he harbors towards Miyagi-Do and Kreese, Terry's willing to ignore sound business advice from Ezra just to get back at his enemies for destroying his reputation. At the tournament, Sensei Silver also tried to sway Kenny Payne to join the Iron Dragons because of the previous connection, as Payne held him in high regard as a mentor. I somewhat discussed the moment and how Kenny redeemed himself, but didn't point out one thing. The words that Silver told Payne echo in his head, but have a double meaning. What have they done for you? Did you come here to win? Though the intention was to manipulate, this backfired because Kenny realized that Robbie stuck his neck out for him, the others forgave him outside of Hawk and Dimitri being paranoid, and he wanted to make things right because of the fact that Silver cheated not only at the All Valley, but also with the Sekai Taikai qualifier. Even with the sign language, it's implied that Silver respects the decision. However, Scary Terry has one more trick up his sleeve. Knowing that Daniel could not resist finding out information about his teacher's past, he throws a wrench into Miyagi-Do's plans to focus by informing Daniel that Mr. Miyagi killed his opponent in the Sekai Taikai. This, on top of Cobra Kai being reinstated, causes another argument between Daniel and Johnny until Miguel steps in and reminds them that their issues with their teachers doesn't mean that they themselves can't be effective senseis. In the episode Into the Fire, Gunther, who up to this point sees through a lot of Silver's attempted tricks and deception, even pointing out the strategy Terry uses to approach him while being in an awkward state, is finally persuaded when the Iron Dragon's benefactor points out that the Sekai Taikai ending under his watch would be devastating, and that it shouldn't end. They should honor Kwan's memory and celebrate the sport of karate. Scary Terry uses the same strategy he uses on Gunther again when having Johnny accompany him for a test drive when he finds out that LaRusso refuses to agree to continue the tournament. He also makes it a point that he knows Johnny doesn't want to work for LaRusso forever and continue to work in sales. Both on the yacht and when Silver meets with the Miyagi-Do senseis, it's revealed that he's sick and he wants one last win so he can at least leave a legacy behind. In a parallel to the lie he told to Miyagi and Daniel in Karate Kid Part 3, this time, Silver is not so confident about the plan. However, the two senseis ultimately agree, and we later learn that Silver has 6 months left to live and doesn't care about taking the medicine anymore since the tournament is here. Despite previously claiming full transparency and that he wouldn't tip the scales in his meeting with Daniel and Johnny, Silver still resorts to dirty tactics as mentioned before and lies about playing fair. He is incensed when Cobra Kai names a replacement captain and instructs Zara to play mind games with Tori Nichols. During Axel's match with Miguel, Silver informs Wolf and his student about Diaz's accident in Season 2 so they can put a stop to the Cobra's momentum. This all ends with his final confrontation with Kreese on the boat. Knowing that his former friend still can't shed his weakness, he stares at Kreese with contempt, still jealous that John chose his student over him. Though Silver manages to throw some verbal daggers at Kreese, this isn't enough to spare him from an explosive fate. Let's also talk about Silver's main goal, legacy. I touched on this in my last Terry Silver analysis video, which I will also say I was wrong about him dying. Given how Season 6 played out, I'm happy to be proven wrong. When Silver struck the deal with Wolf, he was out for revenge because Miyagi-Do destroyed his legacy and reputation. With nothing left, he was willing to drag everyone down to hell with him. By buying the best team in the Sekai Taikai, he wanted to embarrass and erase the legacy of both Miyagi-Do and Cobra Kai. This slightly changes, at least at face value, in the episode Into the Fire where Terry pleads his case to Daniel. When LaRusso states that Silver only has mansions left, he disputes this by saying he doesn't have that anymore, no children, no wife, and no real home. He sadly chuckles while explaining this with hurt and pain in his face, despite saying that he did not want any sympathy. This moment parallels Kreese's breakthrough in Season 5, and I think some of it is real, but it was still a clever ploy as Silver wanted to go out fighting, especially against his enemies. That would also tie it back into Kreese's conversation with Silver at the beginning of Season 4. People expect men of our age to pack it in and go off into the sunset. That might work for you, but I still have some fight left in me. The facade continues during the coverage of the Sekai Taikai, with Terry claiming that he and Mr. Miyagi shared a student, and speaking about his legacy as a subtle jab at LaRusso. The front goes out the window the moment Axel was instructed to break Robbie's leg, as mentioned before. Silver realizes this plan is in danger when explaining to Sensei Wolf that Johnny, Miguel, and Tori are allowed to re-enter as they are former Cobra Kai, and is further incensed at the start of Strike Last as the Iron Dragons are training. LaRusso later confronts Terry after Tori's win over Zara, and though he is down one championship, still takes the opportunity to rub it in Daniel's face that Miyagi-Do will be remembered for losing and quitting. His legacy will live on, and even if he loses, it will be Cobra Kai's legacy, not Mr. Miyagi's, that will persist because Daniel failed to stop that. However, this mind trick does not work because LaRusso has accepted that Cobra Kai will always exist, and Miyagi-Do will still live on whether Cobra Kai exists or not, even going so far to mock what's left of Terry Silver's life that he has left. Not wanting to give up when it comes down to Wolf versus Johnny, Silver wants to ensure his legacy by enacting a kidnapping plot once again, but this is foiled by Kreese. Though he failed in his goal, Scary Terry wanting to leave a legacy behind can be traced all the way back to Karate Kid Part 3 in some aspects, as he wanted to initially open dojos all over the valley and even teach for free. Had he not been exposed in Season 5, he would have gotten away with it. Let's also talk about Silver's last major fights in Season 6 and the franchise overall. I talked about his fights in detail with Kreese in my previous Kreese analysis, so I'll briefly cover those here from Terry's perspective. After losing the first exchange with Kreese, Silver resorts to his old tactics of using the shadows and sneak attacks, blindsiding Kreese with a punch, following up with strikes, and using a kick to regain control of the fight as his legs recovered. Ultimately, Scary Terry is the victor until he's paid back for sucker kicking Johnny by Johnny himself. As he did countless times, Silver uses his predictable wheel kick and follows up with another kick which neither land. Lawrence counters with a kick, throws 3 punches that are blocked, but pulls off a clinch and knees Terry once, though the other knee is blocked and then the grapple is broken up by Silver's uppercut. In the next exchange, Silver throws another punch which is avoided by the drum technique and followed up with a counter kick by Johnny. Lawrence throws another kick that's blocked, ducks under Terry's punch, and counters with a hook that shocks Silver and throws a final kick, knocking the wind out of Terry. Though there's no official end to the fight because one can claim that the fight was interrupted by Quan's scream, Johnny clearly had the upper hand compared to the last duel he had with Silver, landing 5 hits to Silver's 1. In his last fight with Kreese, and in the franchise, Terry is quickly disarmed and knocked to the ground by Kreese. He fights back, gaining some space with a kick, but his punch is redirected and twisted in an unnatural way. However, Silver regains control with a low kick and an uppercut. He then goes Kreese, who attempts to punch him, but Terry knocks him into the gasoline with a kick. John attempts to punch again, but is blocked and he receives a gut punch for his efforts, another vicious punch to the face, but manages to block and twist Silver's arm. However, Terry swats another punch away and tries to kick again, but Kreese grabs his leg, pins him against the boat, and strikes the leg, pulling Silver towards him away from the railing. Scary Terry responds with a low kick and reverses the grapple, choking his opponent out while getting in 2 punches. As we know, Kreese gets the last laugh by throwing his cigar into the gasoline, causing an explosion. Terry has the upper hand again in this fight, though only by 1 to 2 strikes, but it does bring some of his fighting style into question, as I talked about in my last analysis. If you take away the mind games and sneak attacks, Silver is at a disadvantage, as seen in his fights with Johnny and Daniel, and even Chosen, who took away Terry's kicking power. Regardless, Silver's fights are a highlight of the franchise for me, and always feel like epic boss battles. Here are my final thoughts on Terry Silver. Despite how over the top he was in Karate Kid Part 3, sometimes to comedic effect, Cobra Kai brought so much more life into his character by fleshing out his past, his struggles, and his weakness. It's easy to see why Scary Terry is among the fandom's favorite characters. He has no limits and is willing to do what needs to be done to achieve his goals. Yet at the same time, he's human and has his pain and weakness that he tries to suppress. In terms of legacy characters, Silver easily deserves a spin-off of his own that focuses on his ruthless business era, and I would argue that the fandom man for that is just as much as a Miyagi spin-off, and if not, even more. Terry Silver is a prime example that reboots and continuations can do a character justice by not only going back to the roots of a character, but also expanding upon those roots, and as a result, can make a character even more popular than they previously were. Speaking of dimension and death, John Kreese, Silver's war buddy, is one that can't be ignored. Though initially thought to have no redemption arc in his future, we were all pleasantly surprised by his actions at the end of Season 6.